More and more states are passing all-offender ignition interlock laws, and law enforcement officers are encountering drivers in vehicles equipped with ignition interlock devices more frequently. To ensure these devices provide the highway safety benefits intended, it is critically important for officers to understand how to properly handle these encounters. In many jurisdictions, motorists who are arrested for impaired driving can apply for a special license that will give them full driving privileges provided they have an ignition interlock device installed in the vehicle they are driving. This video is designed to help you know what to do during the course of a traffic stop involving a vehicle equipped with an ignition interlock device or a driver who produces an ignition interlock restricted license. Ignition interlock laws vary from state to state, so this training video provides basic information that should be universally applicable. However, it is each officer's responsibility to become familiar with the laws of their state as well as the policies and regulations of their agency before taking any enforcement action.
Hello, I'm Trooper Joseph Massengill of the Tennessee Highway Patrol's Ignition Interlock Program. I began my career with the Tennessee Highway Patrol in 1997. Little did I know when I joined the THP that on June 12, 1998, my life would change forever. I heard troopers in the next county being dispatched to a fatality crash. After finishing my shift, I went home to find a message asking me to call THP Dispatch. The dispatchers told me that my parents had been involved in a head-on crash. Upon arriving at the hospital, I learned that both of my parents had been killed by an impaired driver. I urge you to pay attention to this video because it can help law enforcement become more effective in enforcing ignition interlock laws that have been proven to reduce alcohol-impaired driving crashes.
Let's start with the device itself and what the client is typically told during the installation process. There are many manufacturers of ignition interlock devices, but they have a similar look. These devices have a cord that runs into the steering column area and usually have screens similar to a cell phone that provide text prompts.
So now that it's ready, take a deep breath and blow steady. Keep going. Once you hear the click, it's done. You don't have to blow too hard, just nice and steady. Once you hear or feel the click, it's done, and now you can start your vehicle.
Got it.
The client is usually provided literature and shown a video that explains all of the program requirements, including applicable retest requirements after the vehicle is initially started, anti-circumvention features, whether a camera is present, if it is GPS equipped, and the possible ramifications of violating any of the conditions of the ignition interlock requirement. Now, let's look at what some ignition interlock restricted licenses look like. In many states, the ignition interlock license is only used during the person's suspension or revocation period triggered by a DUI arrest. After the suspension period, they can be issued a standard driver's license that has an ignition interlock restriction for the court or Department of Motor Vehicle mandated period of time. AAMVA recently published a best practice for using T as the national standard for signifying an ignition interlock restriction, but your state may use a different restriction indicator. The restriction could appear on the front or back of the driver's license. Officers should make sure they know what their state uses to identify an ignition interlock restriction. In addition, many states issue special licenses that are issued to drivers who are required to have an ignition interlock requirement.
If a driver produces an ignition interlock restricted driver's license, it doesn't matter if the car is owned by or registered to their spouse, a relative, or a friend. The vehicle they are operating must have a functioning ignition interlock device installed, or they are in violation of the license restriction.
So let's look at some practical field scenarios.
I'm Trooper Taylor with the Virginia State Police. This traffic stop is being audio and visually recorded. May I have your license, your registration, and proof of insurance, please?
Yes, sir.
After identifying that the driver has an ignition interlock restricted license, make sure the vehicle has an ignition interlock device installed. If they do not have the device installed, then they should be cited under the appropriate statute in your state. Once you have identified that the vehicle has an ignition interlock device installed, you should determine if the device is working properly. To do this, ask the driver to turn off their vehicle. You will need to wait for the reset period, which is usually 2 to 3 minutes before having them try a restart. The device will indicate when it is ready to accept a breath sample. If the subject successfully starts the vehicle, then proceed with the original reason for the stop.
Sir, please turn your vehicle off. I see that you have an ignition interlock restriction on your driver's license. Please use your ignition interlock device to start your vehicle.
It won't let me start the car.
Okay, we're going to give it a few minutes, then we're going to have you try it again.
If they blow into the device a second time and they fail again, you should start investigating them for possible impaired driving. Have you detected any odor? Look at their eyes and all the indicators you normally look for in an impaired driver. It's possible that when leaving a drinking establishment, they had someone blow into the device for them.
It still won't let me start the car.
Sir, please step out of your vehicle so you can perform some field sobriety tests for me, please.
Some states allow exceptions for a driver with an ignition interlock restriction to drive a vehicle without a device installed, for example, a work vehicle. However, under any exceptional circumstance, the driver must present the appropriate documentation substantiating that exception. Without the proper documentation, they are in violation and should be cited.
Hi, State Patrol. Just so you know, we're being recorded. I'll just need to see your driver's license, the registration for the vehicle, and the insurance card if you have it on you.
Okay. I'm sorry, I'm just in a hurry to get to work.
Okay. So I can see here on your driver's license that it says that you're required to have an ignition interlock installed in your vehicle, but I don't see one in there.
Yeah, I just haven't had a chance to go get one installed.
Okay. So I can tell that you haven't been drinking, but I still can't let you drive the car without that interlock installed, okay? So today you'll be receiving a citation for the no interlock and for the speed.
Okay.
Most ignition interlock programs require a retest interval after the vehicle is initially started. Retest intervals differ by jurisdiction, but if a person is retesting 10 or 15 minutes after the vehicle's initial start, and they are above the threshold, which is 0.02 in most jurisdictions, that's an indicator that the drivers failed an ignition interlock retest and could mean someone else started the vehicle for them. Many states require a failed retest to cause the vehicle's lights to flash, the horn to honk intermittently, or both.
All right, sir, I'm detecting the odor of intoxicants. Can you go ahead and step out of your vehicle for me?
If impaired driving is not supported by evidence, have the driver attempt a restart using the ignition interlock. It is feasible that they are above the set point, which will not allow the car to start.
All right, sir, this time I do not believe that you're impaired. I do see you have an ignition interlock device in your vehicle. Can you go ahead and try and start the car for me?
It won't start.
Looks like we have to get you a different form of transportation today.
If during a traffic stop you find an ignition interlock that has been tampered with, you should properly document the evidence for follow-up charges. Take a picture of the device that shows evidence of tampering and what device it is. Document the serial number of the device. The head of most ignition interlock devices can be easily unplugged and submitted as evidence with your case. They should be cited for tampering with an ignition interlock device if your state has an applicable statute. It's important for law enforcement to be aware that ignition interlock devices record all the activity of that device in a database that is downloaded during regular device checks, usually every 30 to 60 days.
There was a fatal crash north of Seattle on Interstate 5 involving an impaired wrong-way driver. The driver had an ignition interlock requirement but was driving his daughter's car without an interlock. His data history revealed he had attempted to drive impaired several times, with readings as high as 0.17 until the interlock on his vehicle locked out. Know that these histories are available and are useful for violation investigations and to determine whether these individuals are changing their behavior.
In March 2018, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration launched a first-of-its-kind online ignition interlock course for law enforcement. In addition to the information provided in this video, this 2-hour course will provide law enforcement officers with information and resources to assist them when they encounter a driver roadside who has or should have an ignition interlock installed in their vehicle. The course is hosted on the International Association of Directors of Law Enforcement Standards and Training First Forward website free of charge, and is nationally certified for continuing education credits. In September 2018, the American Association of Motor Vehicle Administrators published an Ignition Interlock Program Best Practices Guide. You can obtain a copy of this best practices document at AAMVA.org. We hope you found this training video informative. Please be safe out there.